Part two, Jonno White. We are back on the radio waves, as it was.
Yes. People have missed us desperately. I've had 183 letters in my mailbox, even though we haven't released the first part. It's been stunning, surprising.
But those what we've learned is obviously paying off, I would say.
Well, we're living the dream. We are the embodiment of all the things we talk about, Richo.
That's it. So what did we talk about last week? Or was it last week? I don't even know when we recorded now. 2 days,
it was 6 months ago.
6 months ago. In part one.
I think each day is equivalent to a week in COVID-19 times.
Oh yeah.
So last time what we did, so what we've been doing is we're talking through helping you get clear on your personal mission and really that idea of direction for you and for the podcast and the business, but also for who you are as the entrepreneur behind that. So last time we started by talking about the really high level stuff. So that includes working out why you do what you do. So your purpose. We talked about the hedgehog concept. What could you actually be the best in the world at? And that was a really interesting conversation. If you haven't listened to part one, jump back and listen to that, because I think that was really interesting to hear about Richo unpack that. And we also talked about a 10-year picture for the podcast, but also for your life as the entrepreneur behind that. And then we landed by discussing 3 brand promises for the podcast and the idea of a brand guarantee that solves a customer frustration. So we were looking at that sort of higher level, more strategic. And what we're doing today is we're taking what we did last time and we're sort of we're now drilling down to the ground level and where we're going to end up. So we started by talking why, talking about reflecting on stories from your whole life that help you understand why, your individual unique calling. And we're going to land with a 3-month plan that helps you work out what to do next week. So that's where we're going today.
Sounds awesome. Looking forward to it. And if you're listening, as you did in part one, if you did it as well, you can feel free to follow along with this as we say this as well, because I guess my heart behind this kind of 2-part episode series is it's for me to get obviously a lot of value out of it and figure out how to make this the best possible experience for the people I'm trying to serve. But also, I thought it's kind of meta, I guess. That's a very techie word that I'm using a lot really at the moment for some reason, but as I get value out of this and start to figure out what I want to do, I thought there's no reason why other people can't be following along and within reason go through some of those steps as well. We mentioned in part one, some of those steps are really good to have a close friend or a coach or someone like that to really bounce those conversations off. But yeah, you can still go through the same processes and map out a bit of a journey for yourself as well. So I hope you guys all get value out of what we're about to talk about. I know I definitely will. And yeah, let's get on with it. So what's the first step?
Well, the first step, we talked about this offline about almost what we've done so far that probably extends to part of what we're going to do in this sort of episode. You can call for an entrepreneur, you can call a 1-page strategic plan. So, a business will have a strategic plan. But I think it's the book Traction that has this idea of a 1-page strategic plan that covers this stuff, your core purpose and your 10-year picture. So a lot of that comes from the book Traction. A couple of things that we're not going to... I actually can't remember the author's name off the top of my head, but
okay. I'm going to get it.
It's quite a well-known business book. So it's by a guy called Jonno White, and it's called Traction: Get a Grip on Your Business. And that's I really love that. It just gives you a very practical sort of framework for a lot of different great ideas that you'll hear about in different books or in different places, but it sort of puts them together in a way that makes a lot of sense for me. So yeah, that's the book Traction. There's a couple of things that we're not going to drill down into, but we just wanted to talk about them quickly because they are part of that 1-page strategic plan, but I didn't really feel like they'd be helpful to delve into now fully, but it's good to just mention them in passing. So one of those things is for you and for the podcast is thinking through who your target list is. So who your target audience is that you're wanting to reach. And then the other one is to map out a sales process. And so, like I said, we're not going to delve into this, but for you, have you thought about who your target audience is? And have you done anything around that?
Yeah, like I probably haven't drilled down as much as I probably could. And so I still need to do that more. But I think from what we talked about the last episode was really trying to, like, my heart behind this is to kind of find people who want to live life on their own terms and want to have, be in control of their own life, and then find people who are already on that journey who can give practical tips so that people can walk away from every episode with another tool in their belt, going, this is what I can put into practice to see, for want of a better word, my dreams become reality. So I thought about, well, who are those people? And for me, there's probably a few different types of people. There are the people who are sort of just getting into uni or even, even about to leave school. And they're kind of going, I've got this big dream and passion in my heart, but the rest of my family or my friends are telling me, just go and do that apprenticeship that you're the same as what your dad did, or just go and do that law degree because that'll give you money. And so those people are actually giving them the tools to be able to go, and the confidence, and to go, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have a crack at actually living out my passion. I think the other people would be people exactly like me who are in that sort of 30, not late 30s, late 20s, early 30s. I'm getting this wrong all the time, but who may have done now over 10 years of working in jobs that they aren't passionate about, who want to change that, who just lack the skills and the tools to kind of, and the confidence. I think confidence is a big thing to put that into reality. So that's probably my two main audiences. I guess that can be condensed into one with an overall umbrella of people trying to live out their passion and purpose. But I think there's other people that
let's do a quick exercise that will be helpful for anyone listening along as well. It's good. There's 3 questions to ask that I think can be really helpful to sort of narrow down that audience and articulate it a bit clearer. So let's go through them pretty quickly, just because now that I think about it, I reckon it'd be, now that we're talking about it, we may as well they'll do this. So the first question to ask about your target audience is, what is the minimum criteria for someone to be part of my target audience? So minimum criteria, we're not talking about our ideal customer yet. We'll get to that. Minimum criteria is like, this has to be true, or they're just simply not an option. Yeah. So, it might be, as an example, it might be English speaking for you, because otherwise they're not going to listen to a podcast in English if they can't understand English. It's probably not going to be ideal for them. So what comes to mind? What are the sort of minimum criteria? And sometimes there aren't that many, but anything come to mind that's like this has to be true for them to even potentially be a customer of what you're offering?
I would say English speaking, as you said. The other one I think is someone who kind of is wanting a better life than what they have. That's what I would say. Like, I think there's going to be people that go, I'm not interested in that. I don't care. And there's also people who go, I'm now 60, for instance. I'm killing it. I'm not really interested in this. So somebody who wants some tools and tricks to enable them to be better than they are at the moment, or their life to be better than they are at the moment.
What about geography? Is there any reason or is it, some organizations it'll be a geographical thing where obviously they have to be in Brisbane because I do everything face to face, although that's hard at the moment. But sometimes people are geographically limited, but I guess you're not, eh? Can be anywhere,
I think
really, in the whole world.
That's one of the values of being online is anyone really that within reason can access me. I don't think geography.
What about age? Is there any age range that's a minimum criteria or not really?
I'm thinking they would probably have to be like sort of over the sort of even 15-year-old, I would say.
Over the age of 3.
Over the age of 3.
I've got prep next year and I'm just not vibing it. I want to pursue my passion for lawn mowing. You can do it, buddy.
I don't.
So 15 plus. That's good.
I would say
that's no maximum though, or is
no.
Don't know ages, but is there a point where you probably drops off?
Well, maybe depending on how technologically illiterate, some of these oldies are. For instance,
yes,
podcasts may not be their thing. They may not be. They may be interesting listening to an ABC podcast rather than this youngish bloke talking about it.
So technology could be a minimum criteria. Let me go to the second one. It's just a good question to get you thinking because it just looks at it from a different angle. The next question is people who are already active listeners, because sometimes your current customer isn't your ideal customer, but your current customer does tell you about who, what a realistic customer might look like. So do you know anyone are there a few people that come to mind that have been really actively listening that don't fit the fans, maybe just because they're close family or that sort of thing? And what is it about them that are some traits of who they are? Age, industry, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I have. I've been digging into like my analytics a bit because even though this podcast isn't massive by any stretch of the imagination, I've probably got that kind of 300-400 unique listeners to each episode, that's not too bad, I thought, for under 20 episodes. And one of the things that kind of tells me about that is at the moment my audience is predominantly male, which I kind of would have expected, just mainly because I've only chatted to one female guest, which I'm in the future doing a lot to change. It's just they were the people that were kind of close in my network. So I started with those guys and I wanted to talk to them. So male are the main ones at the moment. And then I've got quite a few in that sort of, I would say 25 to 30, well, a lot in that 25 to 35-year-old age range. So it's 10 years, but even though that's 10 years, that's kind of if you compact that down, it's a very pivotal part, I think, in people's lives where they may have tried something for the last 5 years, come out of uni and they've been doing something and now they're going, either this is what I want to do or this isn't what it's cracked up to be, this uni course I did. I want to move on to that. So the people that because I realize that a lot of the people listening are just people because they know me and they want to kind of support it, which is I'm very grateful for. But I've kind of tried to drill down and go, who are the people that I don't know? And they're kind of those sort of professionals who are falling into that. They're usually males and mainly in Australia, but also I've had quite a few in England. No idea why. I seem to be resonating over there. Apple seems to be pushing me over there, which is kind of cool. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm brand new.
I'm not going to say no to that.
Yeah, it doesn't worry me.
See you on the next Apple ad. Stay safe at home. Here's the Rich Bryant Show.
Yeah, so thank you to those English listeners. That's amazing.
If you're in England right now, I just want to tell you, not stereotypically at all, but I adore English breakfast tea. It's my favorite tea. And if you hate tea and you're English, please disregard that comment.
You can hang up now. So they're kind of that's the age range. So I think it's
That's really
male.
good. That's a great example. So the point of this, and we're not doing this fully like you would. You can see how long this can take. But for you, this is really interesting because the next question we're going to ask is about who your ideal customer is. But when you look at your existing customers, I mean, you've talked about 25 to 35-year-old males in England. So if you were going to do some sort of marketing, you might ordinarily be thinking, well, I'm based in Brisbane. I'll hit up everyone in Brisbane from there. But that information would say, well, maybe it's worth looking into doing some sort of research or testing or trying something about, even if it was just one campaign to 25 to 35-year-old males in England. And there could be something about you and what you're doing that really resonates with that demographic compared to another region in the world that you go, oh, I didn't know that. So that's where you want to look at your existing customers. So that's great. And then the third question, so you ask, okay, what is the minimum criteria for someone to be a customer? What do my current customers look like? What are their traits? And this is all giving you a bit of a picture that you can then use to understand your target audience. The third one is, okay, what does my ideal customer look like? An ideal customer is about not necessarily who I'm reaching now, but not based on that, but saying, well, based on my vision, what I want to do, for my ideal customer right now, I might be only reaching people in Brisbane, but my ideal customer is actually worldwide because that's really important to me to reach people around the world in different settings. Or, that's just an example. So do you have an ideal customer in terms of who you just look and think, gee, that's the ideal person that I would love to have a big impact on to reach, make a difference in their life?
I do actually. This is probably going to get a bit vulnerable, but I kind of have this dream in my head, right? This kind of picture in my head where, as we're talking about in the last episode, like the big goals and big dreams is, this podcast gets to the point where I'm doing like a live podcast, like a live interview with somebody where you kind of have a theater of people and you have an amazing guest that comes out and everybody can learn, and you've got this tribe of people who are there to see the guests, but have also come because they like the way I ask questions. And when I look out at those people, they're usually like, at that time, they're people who are a bit younger than me, I guess, who are kind of seeing me as more of like a mentor-y sort of figure. Sounds crazy when I say it, but I don't care.
Doesn't sound crazy.
But they're usually like, I see like there's a mixture of males and females. And they're, I would say they're around, they're kind of like where I am right now, like around my 30s, who are going, you know what, I want more, there's more to my life than what I'm living. I want that more than anything. Let's come and be entertained, but also really learn and grow as a community of people. So, and they're not just like professionals, like lawyers and doctors or whatever. They're tradies and, a mix of all different people. I know that kind of makes it harder, I think, to then at the start to nail that down. But I think, they're kind of where I am right now. I want to get to the point where I've grown with the people as I grow with the podcast, but also I get to the point where people who are the same age that I am now, which is 30 this year, in 10, 20 years are going, man, I live for listening to that podcast weekly or whatever. It might probably not going to be a podcast, but a show, who knows what it is, where I can just be motivated and inspired to live my best life. Does that answer the question kind of?
Yes. If we were going to do it in full sort of depth, I would probably stay on this for a while and we'd keep drilling down and try to articulate that. But something I'm hearing from last time as well, we talked about finding people who like books like Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And I think for you, your demographic that fits that sort of ideal customer is interest-based, which is a bit harder to target than people between 50 and 60, but it's people with that interest in exactly how you put it. In terms of how Facebook might put it, maybe it would be self-help, but it's not like it's about that. I need some help to get moving in a different direction, because self-help has a bit of a negative tinge to it.
Like personal development, I guess.
Yeah. Yes. One. People who are interested in that are probably a fit for your show. And so that's really significant, because that is, that's a really important thing for you to realize. So it's good that you know that.
Yeah.
The other thing that we won't really talk through, but when you are doing this, if you're putting this together for yourself at home based on these questions, the other thing that you want to map out is your sales process. So if you are an entrepreneur, or if you're working in a business but you're putting your own sort of plan together for something to launch of your own, the sales process, you got your target audience, which is who you want to reach, but then you actually want to map out every single point, every single touch point, and what's involved with the customer journey, if you want to call it that. So it's like, okay, how do I find someone? Maybe that's through advertising or word of mouth. And then what's involved in that? What does that process look like? Once I find someone and then I'm talking to them, what does that process look like? So maybe you talk to them for 2 days through advertising, or maybe you talk to them for 6 months, because what you're talking to them about is, or maybe you're literally talking to them by actually being up in front of them at a conference, or by doing some phone calls, whatever it is, your process. Most of this stuff already exists for anyone who's a bit down the track, but it's important to map it out and to articulate it, because that's part of the picture of your sort of one, like I said, if you were going to call it anything, it'd be a 1-page strategic plan. It's important to map out that process for a number of reasons, but we won't do that.
No, I'm definitely going to do that though, because I definitely understand that I have to really have a good grasp and a good picture of who the people are that I want to serve.
Yeah.
So that I can then find those people and they can find me. Otherwise, you're just kind of shooting in the dark. And also it kind of helps me then really be selective on which guests do I want to have on the show, so that they will resonate with the people who are listening. There's no point just having shooting in the dark, I guess, and getting all these different people if one out of 10 guests actually resonates with people, so and that takes time, obviously, but I'll definitely be doing that for sure.
And once someone becomes an active listener, are there other channels that you are going to be talking them through? Is there something, so it's not just getting someone to the point of being a listener, it's also the process. Once they become a listener, what does it look like to nurture them? What does it look like to continue to build that relationship? Is it just through podcast? Are there other channels? And sometimes this will be really simple to start it out. There'll be no advertising. It'll be, I'm just focusing on this part of it, which is actually producing product or working with a couple of people and just getting what I'm doing right. But then as you grow, you need to map it out, and the bigger it gets, the more complex it gets. But
definitely. So I think as well, this is super important what we're doing now, but I think there's an element also of you've just got to get started. And then that, like a snowball rolling down a hill, that momentum grows as you kind of figure that out. Like even for me, if I hadn't have started, like this is episode 20 that we're recording right now. If I hadn't have done those 20 episodes, I wouldn't have the analytics to tell me, oh, most of my listeners are males that are 25 to 35. I would go, well, I don't know who I'm talking to. And so I think it's important to kind of, you're doing this, but I think it's also important, you've got to start somewhere and then do it as you go, which is...
I agree. Yeah.
For sure.
That's good. So there are a couple of little pieces on the back of last week. Let's jump into something new. So the next thing we're going to do is we did a 10-year picture, which was more of a picture. We did put some numbers next to it, but it was really more a picture than it was goals. It was a picture with some goals. But more a picture. Now we're going to talk about a 3-year picture, but this is really where we're going to get more specific around some goals in 3 years. So what are we, 2020? So in 2023, by by May 2023, what does it look like? And what are some specific goals that, like a handful of goals that you think would be a good reflection of having reached that point? So paint the picture a little bit for me first in 3 years' time.
3 years' time. So 3 years' time. So I would definitely, I'm definitely going to be continuing to do at least 4 episodes a month. So 1 each week, hopefully more.
Yep.
So whatever that looks like, I think that would probably be in the kind of 100 or so episodes, probably more than that, 150. Let's say.
By then, so
yeah, let's say 100.
That'd be an additional 150 episodes.
Yeah, I would say that's about right, because I'm hoping that by the end of this year I should be not at 100 but pretty close if I've got everything mapped out correctly. It's a lot of episodes to get through, but if I keep smashing them out, which I'm looking forward to doing, by then in 3 years' time as well, if I'm putting it from subscribers, I hope to have at least 3 years' time, 20,000 YouTube subscribers.
Yep.
That's probably conservative, but I think it's definitely achievable if I target them. But I think YouTube, as I grow it, that's going to be a big base for me, because I'll be putting up different things and different videos aside from just the podcast on there.
And did we say the goal was 150 episodes, to be at 150 in 3 years, or more than that?
I reckon, without doing the maths, I think, let's say 200. I reckon 200, because that's 100. 200. That's 100 a year. I don't know. I think that's achievable. Well, I might be terribly surprised, but we'll see how we go. Let's say that for now. And then 3 years' time, 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. Yep. I think. I think the thing that's not necessarily as measurable would be, I guess it is measurable, but I'd love to have, like, after every episode, there's like a stream of comments that start coming in of people really going, hey, this is what I got out of this episode, or thank you so much, I got this out of that guest, where I can really start to interact with those my audience and people that are following what we're doing. So, at least 100, say 100 comments on each video.
Yep.
What else have we got? I'd love to start by in 3 years' time. I'd love to be at the point where I'm sort of sitting down and chatting to some sort of international guests, whether that be that they've come to Australia or I've gone there or online, but sort of some, one of the goals I have is I want to sit down and speak to somebody who has a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah.
Not purely because they have a New York Times bestseller, but that's a measurable goal, I think, because it kind of reflects that I've now got enough reputation that people are willing to sit down with me, but also that I can hold a conversation with somebody who has a best-selling book. And we all know that if someone says, I have a best-selling book, the people that are listening usually go, oh, okay, well, this person must have something to say then. So it kind of brings credibility to what the person's saying. So I think that's definitely one of my goals is in the next 3 years is to have sat down with at least one sort of New York Times bestseller.
Yeah, great.
What else? How deep do you want to go into it? Do you want to go as far as like social media followings, that sort of thing?
No, I mean, I think if these are your main ones, then I think that sort of stuff, you probably don't need to articulate that.
Yeah.
I think you've got enough there in those 4. 200 episodes done, 20,000 YouTube subscribers, 100 comments on each video, and chatting to some international guests, at least one New York Times bestselling author. I think that's a good handful of goals for 3 years.
Those numbers, those first two, which is the number of episodes and the YouTube subscribers, I'll listen back to this and I've written a note here, but I think there's a bit of maths that I can kind of do and go, well, what's actually achievable if I'm releasing one episode a week for the next 3 years? How many actually is that? So that you can actually go, this is how many I want to have, and it's actually realistic then. And then also the YouTube subscribers, like 20,000 I could be going either just thinking way too small there. You know, it could be 150, and who knows? So, so I think maybe if we made it, say 3 years, let's go silly. Let's go 100,000. Because I kind of have this thing that I say to myself, which is like, you know, what is it? Shoot. I'm going to stuff it up now, but like if you shoot really high, if you put expectations and goals really high, even if you come short, it's still much higher than if I had just put a small goal there. Was shoot for the moon and you'll hit the stars. I don't know, something like that. People can research that.
I think it's shoot for the stars and you'll hit the moon.
That sounds way more.
Shoot for the sun, you hit the moon?
Yeah,
shoot for the roof and you'll hit the wall.
Perfect. Tattoo that on your arm. So let's go. Let's change that to 100.
Yep.
100,000.
So now what we're going to do is we're going to move to 1 year goals.
Perfect.
So you've talked about, just to refresh your memory, 10-year picture. We talked about full-time interviewing people, millions of subscribers and listeners, that reputation where you're able to get exclusive people on there. Lots of people saying it's really changed their life listening. Lots of travel, million subscribers, team of 4, doing things in different countries, $10 million revenue, $8 million profit. Financially not worried about flying anywhere. If there's an opportunity to go and interview someone in London in a week, you're able to sort of go, you know what, let's do that. And then 3 year picture, 200 episodes, 100,000 YouTube subscribers, 100 comments on each video, chatting to some international guests, at least one New York Times bestselling author. So what are a handful of goals, 2, 3, 4, 5 at the most, key goals for you this time next year in order to achieve those things that we just mapped out from 10 and 3 years?
This time next year. So I guess this time next year, if we start kind of in line with the 3 year goals and the 10-year goals, I think for subscribers, because I kind of view subscribers as quite big in my head, because that kind of gives me an idea of how big my audience is. So if I'm growing that, then something good is happening. Hopefully. So look, realistically, I haven't got many subscribers on YouTube yet. If you're listening to this, smash that bell, like and subscribe.
Hit that bell like you're at Bell Central Park in London.
In London.
It's not a place, but just hit that bell. Come on.
But yeah, I'd like to have at least 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Which I think that's cautious, but I think that's definitely achievable. 1,000 subscribers in a year if I'm delivering good content. And actually, at the moment, I haven't done any sort of outside marketing, anything. I haven't even been really active on social media with finding those audience and sort of creating conversations with them. It's just been kind of here's some photos and some stories. You know, hope you like it, sort of thing. So once I get it more intentional, I think 1,000 is definitely achievable. I'd love to have sat down and interviewed and chatted with some people that are quite well known in Australia, like some quite well known Australian guests. It's been amazing chatting to the guests that I've already chatted to. I've got so much out of their stories, but chatting with people with like really large networks who also they just have that sort of reputation and clout that people go, oh, actually, I want to listen to this person. And and I have to be careful what I say because I don't want to take anything away from the guests that I'm having on at the moment because I love chatting to them, and there's a reason that I got them on the podcast. It's because I'm genuinely interested in their stories and what they have to share. And other people, I've had lots of comments from people, personal comments saying, oh, I love this. I got so much out of that. So I have to be careful. I'm not trying to make these people are better than this people, but I think naturally, if I'm being vulnerable and honest, I want to keep kind of finding those people who are who have a bigger audience, have written books, this sort of stuff, some really cool life experience and stories. So someone who is I'd love to have chatted to somebody or more than one person in Australia who's quite well known and sort of famous in Australia for doing a particular thing, not like a celebrity, but a well-known psychologist or motivational speaker, business person, someone like that. So if we put a number on that, I'd say at least 10 of let's say 10, because I think once I can get one or two of them, I think I can get the ball rolling and kind of you can start to play off a bit and go, hey, would you be interested in coming on the podcast? Some of my previous guests have been this person and this person. And if that person knows them, they go, oh, this person's legit. I might have it, I think it kind of builds as you go. Whereas at the moment I contact people and they're like, I don't know who you are. Which is fine. That's all part of the fun. It's all part of the game, which I enjoy. But that's a goal. That's definitely a goal. So we've got
great
1,000 subscribers, some 10 high profile guests. I'd like to grow my social media following as well because I think there's a value that I have to share through me just talking. And that's what we talked about in part one is this podcast is not just about getting high profile guests on who can sort of speak in and that's all that the listeners get out of it. I think a lot of the value that I'm sharing is that this is my story as well. And we're going through this together. Like even what we're doing now, I was thinking about this chat before we started chatting. I was like, I don't know if many people that are trying to create a podcast or do things are showing this. Like traditionally they would go, oh, people don't need to see that. Whereas I'm like, no, I think it's really important that people see the whole story, so well, I think it's important. Maybe time will tell. We'll find out in a year.
What does it look like for you to have a goal around social media? What might that look like as a number? Is there a particular channel that's a key channel on social media? Is there a couple?
I think at the moment my the big one for me is Instagram. That's the one I feel most comfortable on. Things may change, but like Instagram, for instance, in a year, I'd love to have at least a few thousand subscribers. So maybe that's 5 a year. A year is a long time. Let's say 10,000. Let's be big and bold.
10,000 Instagram followers.
Yeah, and sort of really it's and I'm not interested in social media to just be like, here's a cool picture of me, because there are no cool pictures of me, let's be honest. And like here's my life. I'm quite self-deprecating, aren't I? Here's my life, check it out, because it's not that exciting. But I think that's going to be really valuable to try to build this sort of community of like-minded people who are, and a place as well where they can kind of encourage one another. So, like I follow a few different people who kind of are further along in the journey, and I get value out of just the comment section where people are like encouraging each other in the comments, and you've really built that community, which is cool. Where that's my big goal. anyway.
Cool. Anything else? We've got it doesn't have to be 1,000 YouTube subscribers. You've sat down and interviewed 10 well-known Australian guests and 10,000 Instagram followers in 1 year from now.
I think that's
it.
Yeah, I think that's it for now.
So this is one of the keys that I think is really helpful in this process. That's been a relatively new revelation for me, and it came from a book that I mentioned last time, I think, in part 1, called The 12-Week Year, which is the 12-week year is written by Brian Moran and Michael Lennington. And that's probably the most helpful book you're right?
Yeah, drop my pen. It's all good.
Drop the pen, that's right. They disappear, those things. And the thing I love about the 12-week year, the whole premise is we do annual planning. Businesses run on a financial year. 12 months is how we tend to structure things as a culture. And the thing, if they go into a lot more detail, but basically if you reflect on your own workflow in businesses, just say there's often some really, which I've seen this, there's some really productive times in a business. And the most productive times, one of the most productive times, as an example, tends to be the couple of months leading up to the end of financial year, because it's a deadline and everything needs to be wrapped up. Everything's getting reported on. And so the couple of months before the end of the 12 months tends to be really productive. But the issue with a 12-month timeline is that 12 months is far enough away that if you get 2 months in and you haven't gotten where you need to be, even 3 months or 4 months in, you're not really panicking. It's only once you hit 6 months, 7 months that you start going, oh man, okay, this is where we are and we need to get there, and then you need to turn things around. And so the point they make is that rather than 12 months, what if we actually did a 12-week year? So if we treated a 12-week time period like we currently treat a year-long time period. And the thing I love about 12-week time frame is that it's far enough away that you can achieve really significant things in 3 months, but it's close enough that if next week, if you drop the ball and feel like you haven't quite done what you needed to do, there's still a sense of urgency. It's not like it's all good. I've still got a whole year. It's got this really healthy mixture of far enough away to make a difference, close enough to have that sense of urgency around the deadlines and the tasks that you need to do. And so that's something I've started doing with people I work with, is even with teams, is actually previously I sort of let them decide when they wanted to set goals. But a lot of the time now I do it on 12 weeks because I think there's just something about that timeline that's really helpful. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's
so this is where we're going to start breaking it down from just some goals into some tactics in a second. But first, what are the 2, 3, 4 goals for you in the next 12 weeks, keeping in mind that once again, it's always good to go back. Your 3-year picture is 200 episodes, 100,000 YouTube subscribers, 100 comments on each video, at least one New York Times bestselling author. Your 1 year goal from now, 1,000 YouTube subscribers. You've sat down and interviewed 10 well-known Australian guests, 10,000 Instagram followers. So what needs to be true? What are your goals for 3 months from now in order to achieve those things further down the track?
Instantly I thought about something I'm trying to build is my Instagram following. So I reckon in 3 months, it's crazy that you said this actually, because I'd actually sort of started thinking about this. I want to hit that 1,000 followers mark, just because it also means I've got more people that are following me, but also it unlocks a few different things in Instagram that I want to use. So that's definitely a goal, which I think is totally achievable if I, do take a lot of time and effort into creating good content and doing more. I'm not interacting at all with others, really. I'm not going out and searching, which is what you really have to do. People don't just fall in and fall on your lap because there's so many people on Instagram.
Yeah, true.
You've got to be pretty intentional. So that's definitely one of the goals. 3 months from now, with the guest side,
yep.
I have a feeling that a lot of them will probably still be the same that we're doing now via Zoom if some of these restrictions don't get for COVID-19 don't get lifted. But 3 months from now, I'd like to have what's that? Say if I did
31st of July.
Yeah, so if I did 4 episodes a month, what's that? 12 episodes.
Yeah.
So at least 12 episodes because I'm finding I'm doing sometimes 6 a month at the moment, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So at least 12 more episodes.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm really intentional about is I really want to start getting more of a balance of guests between I want to have more female guests on as well.
Yep.
So one of the jobs I was doing this morning was really trying to make a list of those guests so that I can target them. Well, not target them. That's not the right word. See if they would be interested in coming onto the podcast. So I think out of those 12 episodes, half of them, like at least 6 of them would be females. And I have to be careful because I'm not doing that. I don't want to just have 50-50 for no reason, but I really feel that there's a lot of females in the world that are kicking ass as well. And to showcase that. And there's something as well, like there's something about when I listen to like someone like Brene Brown, you know, she talks about vulnerability and some of the things that I've heard her speak about. There's something, I can't explain it, but there's a different element that I get when I'm hearing that through the experiences and eyes of a female that I think, especially as males, and if my target audience is males at the moment, I think it's important for us to hear to get a well-rounded view of what's going on in the world. So that's something that's really important to me. What else is there? One of the things, and I was going to bounce this idea off you, I don't know if this is a place to do it, but one of the things that I want to start doing is, as well as my podcast, so that's 1 month, one a week or 4 a month or whatever, I want to start doing, well, I'm probably going to start doing it, is these shorter, say 20-minute Instagram live conversations with people. Yeah. Because, and the reason I want to do that as well is because that way I can just sit down with so many different people who are really interesting and have value to share, and we can just do it through an Instagram live. And then that way is also I'm creating a catalog of people's stories that other people can be inspired from. And what I'm thinking of is that those people that I chat through via Instagram are kind of people who are potentially on the same journey as me, and we can chat about that, and I can encourage them and then that helps to build that tribe of people who once a week we look forward to who's this next guest that can invest into us, not just me.
Great.
So I think if I do that as well, if I look at it from purely a growing an audience point of view, if I have someone on Instagram and I chat with them, then that's something that they can also potentially, if they wanted to, if they got a good experience out of it, share with their friends. And then that's how you kind of grow from there.
That sounds great. I mean, is that something that is its own goal, or is it more about getting to the 1,000 Instagram followers? It sort of comes under that, or is it its own thing?
I think it's its own thing. So I thought about it. I was thinking about doing that before I thought, oh, that could be a good way to grow my audience as well. So, I think it's definitely a way to kind of encourage and just find out where people are at and hear from everyday people have cool stories. And so I think it's a cool way to kind of grow that community of people who want. I have to figure out the wording behind it. Who are trying to follow their passion.
Yeah.
And then one of the big things that we do that is once a week, there's somebody who's kind of further along in that journey who can share and invest into those people and myself to then, what we've said, have the tool and the inspiration to keep going. So I think it could be cool.
What's a measurable for 12 weeks time around that?
Look, I'm thinking I could do they're the sort of thing that I want to do 4 a week or something like that, because they're only 20-minute chats on Instagram. So there's really no sort of production. Like anybody can talk to their phone. Obviously I'd have to find these people, but you know what I mean? Like you don't have to sit down via Zoom or Skype, or I don't have to go to their house and set up microphones. So I would love to make that like a 4 a week kind of thing to
that'd be 48. 12 weeks times 4, or do you need a couple of weeks to get going with it?
No, I've got a few people that I've sort of chatted to around it, so it's something that I'm pretty keen to kick off with.
So 48.
Yeah, say 48.
So 48 20-minute Instagram lives.
Yep.
Great. Any other goals in 12 weeks' time? We got 1,000 Instagram followers, at least 12 more episodes, 6 with females, and 48 20-minute Instagram lives.
No more. I think that's about it. I'd love to get a bit fitter, but it probably doesn't.
You put that in if you want.
Yeah.
Run the 100 meters in under 38 seconds.
I just can't wait for my gym to open again. Oh,
I tell you what, I have been terrible with the gym since COVID-19. Liz does the gym workouts online with Queensland Kettlebells, brought to you by Piers Kwan.
Yeah.
A little plug for my brother-in-law. And I am still part of the gym, but have been sitting on the couch while Liz works out. Hilarious. And I've been working out my stomach.
Yeah,
by just testing what sort of combinations of food have I not tried. Have I tried ice cream with sticky date pudding before? Have I tried a coffee-flavored ice cream as an alternative to coffee? See how it works. How do my energy levels go? That sort of work.
Mix up those exercises, that's for sure.
I am, and I boil the kettle a lot. I may not move kettlebells, but boiling the kettle a lot, having a lot of coffees. Just getting really,
what a machine.
Gonna have some abs.
Yeah.
Abs of ice cream. So what you want to do here, if anyone's doing this at home as well, so you write out your 12-week goals. It's good to have 2 or 3, which is what we've done. We've got 3, and then now we've got 12-week goals. We want to break these down into what you call tactics, and then we're going to set a due date for each of these tactics. And then you can actually, sometimes you need to break the tactic down into a task. But what we're going to do is we're going to take these 3 goals. We're going to break them down into what tactics do you need to employ to achieve that? When does that tactic need to be achieved by? And then what you'll end up with ideally is a weekly plan for 12 weeks. And the idea is that each week, in week 1, this is what I need to achieve. It's not that these are the only things you're going to do. It's just that as I've articulated the long term and brought it all the way back to short term, these are the key things to be able to get to where I need to go. And so your weekly plan is your thing that you start your day looking at and you look at through the day. And your focus that week is ticking off as many of your weekly plan items as you can. And once that week's done, it's done, and you've got your next week ready to go, and then you review after 12 weeks. So that's where
that's awesome.
The idea is. So let's start with 1,000 Instagram followers. What are the tactics in the next 12 weeks that you need to employ to achieve 1,000 Instagram followers in 12 weeks' time?
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely that. It's definitely those Instagram lives. I think if I do them well, that's something that can help to grow me or to grow the Instagram. The other thing that I I need to start doing is finding people who are in that target audience and just going and interacting with them online. I'll go on Instagram. So, finding their profiles and going and finding something that I find interesting and commenting on it. With never going, hey, you should come and follow me, but just striking up that conversation. That's something I've learned from Gary V, but never put into practice. It's all about that kind of you have to be building that conversation and relationship if you want people to come and check out what you're doing. So that's another good one. Yeah, I think it's important. And then just also what I'm doing at the moment is working out a real, like a content sort of strategy. So, because it's not that I need everything to look perfect, but I want to be delivering value to their followers. There's so many Instagrams. I think it's 1 out of 30 posts is something decent and the rest is just garbage. So my challenge for that is I'm quite new to it still. I've always been very resistant to social media. And so for me, I'm still learning the ropes. So, trying to do things like when I release an episode, chopping that up into kind of bite-sized pieces, and then you can upload that to Instagram Live, and so that people can kind of watch that. Same as what I'll be doing on YouTube. So people can watch the whole thing, but also here's Jonno White talking about goal setting and it's 5 minutes long, so people can kind of piecemeal, because there are a lot of people who don't want to listen for an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever. Or an hour, which I get. I think for me, I find a lot of value in the long form conversation, but I also understand there's a lot of people who go, or there's a lot of value, I think, in also people finding that 10-minute clip and then going, oh, I want to find more about this. And then they end up listening to the 2-hour long one, so being more intentional about that. So, so out of every episode, I'm trying to create at least 4 little snippet videos. I'm sort of loosely writing this stuff down, but I'm going to listen back and write out a proper plan from it. So that would be that. I'm trying to think what else. That's really about it for now. I have to do. Okay. I'm still for the Instagram stuff. I'm still in a bit of a process of researching and observing what other people do. So I'm sure there's other techniques that I'll have to. Maybe I'll have to wear my bikini or something and take some shots of that. Hopefully,
I think the world's been waiting for that.
That's how we get views.
I think all of Instagram might shut down if that happens, though.
I think so.
Facebook may not be ready for that. There is no algorithm.
Yeah. Kim Kardashian would be like, man, how can I sponsor you? How can I endorse you?
I'm retiring because of the Rich Bryant bikini gate.
The bikini gate scandal of 2020.
I don't understand exactly what gate at the end of it means. I think it was Watergate.
Pizzagate.
But the Rich Bryant bikini gate would definitely be. That would make the news in my book anyway. That would definitely make the news.
Definitely.
Let's break down. We'll get to the Instagram lives in a moment. When we talk about finding people in your target audience and interacting online, I want you to break that down for me. What does finding people in your target audience and interacting online look like as a task-by-task process?
Okay.
So this might be some things that you're doing every week, some things you need to do first. I need to make a list in week 1 and then in week 2, so just give me a bit of a brainstorm around that.
So because I've kind of started loosely doing this, I'm trying to make I'm starting to make a bit of a list up of kind of things that fall into that genre. So, some of the hashtags are progression over progression over perfection, follow your passion, that sort of stuff. And so within that, there's 90% of that is stuff that doesn't really apply to this audience. But so things like that, I'm trying to identify those different things that people are hashtagging so that I can be like, oh, okay, they're kind of on the same sort of trajectory. Different podcasts or speakers, authors, books that fall into kind of that category. So, people who like or follow someone like a Tony Robbins, or someone who follows someone like a Tim Ferriss, the different books, hashtag start with why. So there's a whole bunch of people there that have done that, and so you can go into their profile. So that's been one step, is kind of going, what are the sort of hashtags and also influencers and accounts at the moment that somewhat align with what I'm trying to do. Not that I'm trying to be a Tony Robbins, but the way I think about it is, if somebody is following someone like a Tony Robbins who gives a lot of motivational, they're all about, changing your state, finding your purpose. Some of it's, so I think it's good stuff. They're probably going to be thinking around that same. They're probably not people who are like, yeah, I don't want to do anything with my life. I'm quite content.
I hate life. What's Tony Robbins got on today?
Yeah. They're not like Fortnite 24/7 hashtag Tony Robbins. Like, they're not like that, Well, they maybe are.
My two favorite things in the world are Tony Robbins and playing Fortnite 24/7. Well, there you go. It exists.
So finding those people, or then just commenting on their posts. Like if someone puts up something and goes, puts up a quote or something like this that aligns with the way that I think as well, commenting on their post and not just going, hey, or like smiley face, follow me. It's more like, and I did it when I was building BPM, and it worked quite well, as going. And I think the trick is you have to be authentic around it. Is actually going, hey, I really resonated with this. Here's, this like great quote. Love what it says. And a quick little, this has helped me in this area of my life. Hope it helps you as well. And it's just something like that where someone goes, oh, that guy actually took the time to, he's obviously read the post, and that takes, I'm sure there's like way faster ways to do it. Growth hacking.
No, I don't know if there really is. I think in terms of what you want to do, I mean, there's probably faster ways to do it where you do paid advertising that engages people. But in terms of doing it organically, that's probably about as good as it gets, I think. Yeah. You have to do the hard yards, spend the time. I think that sounds like a really good idea.
Because I'm not interested
What's the measurable around that? Is that a number? Is there an amount of time you could spend each day, amount of time you could spend each week? Is the number of comments to post? What's something you can put in a weekly plan to be a bit of a, I need to do this many of... How many of those?
I reckon it has to be. It's hard work. It has to be a lot. So I want to.
It's how many you need to do to hit 1,000 followers.
Yeah. So I think because I don't think that every single 1,000 followers, every single one has to come from that. Because I'm getting, every time I post something, I'm getting a few new followers each time. But I would say and it's pretty achievable. I've already started doing it. I would say like you could do 50 of them a day.
50 a day. Yeah.
That isn't much to just spend a little bit of time. Because how much do you scroll through? How much do I scroll through anyway? It's quite a lot. It's an embarrassing amount. If I actually focus that time on, I'm not just going to look at these people's profiles now. I'm actually just going to leave a quick comment and engage with them.
So 250 a week, 50 a day?
Yeah, that would that'd give me, what would that give me? 9, what's maths? 750. Is that correct, or 800? No, 750. So if I did 250 a week for 3 weeks, that's 750.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good, because I reckon
for 12
rest,
weeks.
Oh, for 12 weeks.
12 weeks would be 3,000.
Oh, yeah.
Comments. That's gold.
Yeah.
And that's not every day. That gives you the weekends off. Or five a week might be good. 5 days a week is good, because maybe there's a day where you're doing 3 podcasts where you can't smash out 50 comments that day.
There's times where I'm just sick of looking at my phone as well.
Yeah.
But a little quick hack. I figured out a way on, I think you can do it on every phone, but I'm sure most people know this, but you can type in like hotkeys in your text messaging. So like if you say, hey, great, you can type in, hey, great, loved this post, or got so much out of this post. You can assign that to like H1 or something on your thing. So you can type really fast.
Oh, that's clever. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you can kind of pre-type a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
You don't want to do the same.
And then personalize it a little bit on that second part of it. You
can do that for your hashtags. Like you can do like all your hashtags to assign to a key, so that when you just hit it, it just smashes them all down and you're done. Because I find if I spend too much time typing, I just get over it. I'm sick of it. So, so I reckon that's definitely achievable. 250 a week.
250 a week. So you make a list of target hashtags and target authors, speakers, books, influencers. You comment on people's posts, 50 a day, 250 a week. Anything else you need to do to hit 1,000 to find people in your target audience and interact online, or does that tick that off?
I think that ticks it off.
What about content strategy?
Yeah. Okay. Content strategy. So
what are the tasks you need to do around creating the 4 snippets of videos every episode? Anything else that you need to do on top of that Instagram commenting, on top of Instagram lives, and on top of the 4 snippets? Is there anything else involved in the content strategy?
Yeah. So the content strategy, the things that I'm doing are 4 snippets from each video, but then also 2. I've posted 1 up. I think I've done up a bit of a design, trying to keep things consistent. I'm doing like a quote of something that the guest has said, some sort of wisdom that they've pulled on. So I'm trying to do 2 of those, which they don't take me long. That's not long at all. I've already set up all the templates and Photoshop and everything. So 2 of those a week as well. Because it may sound like a lot as well, going, oh, that's a lot to post. But one of the things that I've learned from studying is there's an algorithm involved. And so although I think that I'm posting a lot, people aren't seeing everything that I post anyway. They might see a quarter of what I post, even like my close followers. And so yeah, one of the things that Gary Vee says to people, he's like, you should be posting like 4 to 5 times a day on Instagram and at least like 15 stories a day. And people are always like, you're crazy. Like, what the heck? Aren't you going to overwhelm people? And he's like, no, because that's not how Instagram works. Instagram will never overwhelm somebody because they want people to stay on their platform. So they'll selectively just dish out stuff that you've done.
True. Yeah. That's gold. So 4 snippets from each podcast, 2 quotes from each podcast. And where do they get posted to?
To Instagram.
Instagram.
Oh, Instagram and YouTube. Oh, I guess I'm leaving Facebook out of it as well, but
that's right. It's
Facebook's
good, less but better.
Yeah. I'm trying to Facebook's kind of sitting there, but I know I use Instagram a lot, and I feel like my target audience are more on Instagram anyway. And I feel like if I just focus on the one, then that and YouTube, at least I can start to gain momentum. And maybe once I gain a bit of a following, then you can branch out a bit. But it's just too much.
Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise.
I agree. So that's the content strategy. That sort of sums it up.
I think so. Yeah.
Is there anything else? Yep. So let's move on to the second goal, which is the let's talk about the 48 20-minute Instagram lives.
Yep.
What are the tactics involved in doing the 48 20-minute Instagram lives in the next 12 weeks?
So 48, how many did we say that a week? Is that 4 a week or 5 a week?
4 a week.
4 a week. So one thing is definitely contacting. Well, the first thing I need to do is create a list. I'd love to create a list of people. So let's say at least 20 names of people that I'm going to have, of 20 potential guests that I can contact with and I want to give them like 3 short questions that they can think about in advance. So that it's a chat, but it's also, I want to try and keep it consistent so that each time we have a person on, people that are listening go, okay, well, this is what they're going to be talking about. Because the idea is that then you can get 48 people's different perspectives on what's going on.
Great.
Well, like for instance, what's your biggest struggle during isolation and COVID-19, or what is the one thing that you want to, what's the one thing that you want to get better at or make the most of this opportunity during this uncertain time in lockdown, and really start to encourage people, use this time as an opportunity rather than we're stuck at home and I can't work. It's like,
that's great.
I think that'd be cool. So make the list of 20 people that the 21st potential guests.
Yep.
And then contact 4 of them, but I think I'd probably want to contact more of them to give them notice. So let's say contact 10 of those people.
Yep.
And then starting next week. I think by the end of this, by tomorrow, I hope to have next week's guests locked in. I guess you call them a guest. Instagram Live, it's still a chat.
So contact 10 of those people about next week.
So that'd be next week, the following week, and then trying to see what works for them.
So do you need to create a new list of 20 people every fortnight and contact 10 of them every week to hit your 48? Is that what you think you'll need to do? Like you make a list of 20 today, you hit 10 up today about next week. Next week you hit 10 up about the week after, and then you make a new list, hit up 10 the week after that. As in you need to contact 10 people every week and need to make a list of 20 people every fortnight, basically.
The only reason I say that I would do it that way is because I'm not really very good at just thinking. I overwhelm myself if I go, I have to make a list of 48 people. I'm finding that I just need to start doing, and then the ideas come from there. Otherwise, I'll literally sit all day trying to make this list of 48 people and second guessing every time and going, I don't know if this person would be keen, and just dumb thoughts that lead to no productivity. Whereas if I just go, let's just get 20, and even 20 may be too much, but I'll do that to start with. Start from there, So 20, contact 10 of them a week, and then do 4 of them a week. Do 4 interviews, 4 Instagram lives every week. Yeah, I reckon it could be cool.
Yeah. Does that tick off the 48 20-minute Instagram lives if you get those things done?
I think so, because the cool thing about the Instagram live stuff is there's no real post-production, because you're chatting and then it's live.
Yeah, true. That's true. Good point.
It's already up there. Yeah, the quality isn't as good, but some content over quality. Quality over, I don't know what I'm trying to say. content over quality. Like, if what we're talking about is good stuff, it doesn't matter.
Yes. Yeah. So let's just talk about the at least 12 more episodes, 6 of which are females in the next 12 weeks. What are the tactics that you need to employ to achieve that?
Yeah. So I've already started working on that, but I need to create, similar to what I've done for the Instagram, I'm doing for the Instagram lives, but I need to create that list. I want to create that list of 12 guests.
Yep.
And then I'd like to do it in one chunk or even 2 chunks. So let's just say contact six a day. So if I contact 6 over a day.
Yep.
Yeah. The rest is really just it takes me a little. I've got who I want to have in my head. It's just contacting them.
You've got to create the list. You've got to contact 6 of them in one day, and then you've got to do the interviews, and then do the work. Yeah.
So that's the thing that I'm finding is it takes work. Like it's all about hard work, but you go, is the hard work is going to be worth it for the reward, And
absolutely. Yeah.
I also really enjoy writing a list, and there's something really quite addictive about highlighting that list and ticking it off. It's part of the fun is this building process for me.
Absolutely. So I think that would tick off the goal of at least 12 more episodes, 6 females. Basically, the 6 females thing is just making sure that on your next list of 12 guests, you prioritize finding some more female guests for the reasons we already talked about.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to run you through. It's a bit hard to do this without seeing what I've written, but basically what you normally do from here is you take the different things. We've got the first goal of 1,000 Instagram followers, and there were 2 tactics. Well, there was the 20 Instagram lives, but that's its own goal. So there's 2 tactics under 1,000 Instagram followers, right? One was finding people in the target audience and interacting online. So let's start with that. Making a list of target hashtags and target authors, speakers, books, influencers. Is that a week 1 task, a week 2 task? When are you going to make that list?
I think, this is good. Let's prioritize it. Can we just say which are sort of like, they're all priorities, but I think one of the things that I really need to do first is my sort of task to do tomorrow is the list of podcast guests, because that's something that needs time to be booked in. People have to find a gap in their schedule and book it in.
Yep. So create list of 12 guests for the podcast is a week 1.
Yep, definitely.
And do you need to contact 6 of them about interviewing them in week 1 as well?
Yeah, let's do that. Contact 6 and I'll try and book in 4 of them. Well, I've already got a few lined up, so it's kind of,
Okay. When are you going to do the interviews? Is that something you do 1 a week? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
You do one of them, you actually do 1 every week?
Yeah. Well, yeah. This is the hard part. It kind of depends. Like sometimes I've done either 1 a week, or sometimes the way that someone's schedule's worked out, I've done 2 in 1 day before, and then that carries over, So it's hard to put a kind of but I would definitely release 1 a week. Yeah.
Yeah. What else is the next priority? So we talked about creating the list of podcast guests and contacting 6 of them, booking 4 of them in. What comes next after that in terms of urgency from what we've talked about?
I would say that once the podcast guests, because there's no point doing Instagram stuff if there's no podcast guests coming in, because that's what I'm trying to build. So once that's kind of, I know that I'm going to be able to release an episode once a week. I think the next thing is this Instagram live stuff.
Yep. And so creating the list of people, at least 20 names of potential guests.
Yep.
Is that something you think you can do in the first week as well as doing the podcast list and contacting the podcast people, or is that a week 2 thing? Assume next week is week 1. Between Monday and Friday next week, do you see yourself being able to achieve the podcast, creating the list, contacting 6 of them, booking 4 of them in, doing another episode and creating the list of Instagram live people, or does it need to wait a week?
I think I could probably do it because I'm not working at the moment. So
okay,
between this and a bit of uni work, this is really all I
do. So this is really important for people who are doing this at home as well. This sounds a bit laborious doing this, but you spend half an hour doing this every 12 weeks or an hour. And then what you create is you create week 1, week 2, week 3. And then when you hit week 3, you don't have to recreate it. You've done this work now. You just pull out the file for week 3 for the weekly plan, or you print it out, or you have it as your background or whatever. And then you use that as in week 3, that's what you look at every day, a couple of times a day. I don't know what to do this afternoon. Let me get out my weekly plan again. That's right. I've only done 5 of those comments today. I need to do another 45, etc. So that's why it's so helpful to break these down. So you're going to try to do that in week 1 as well. What about sending the 3 short questions? Is that a week 1, week 2, week 3?
Yeah, so I guess it's hard because literally it's Friday today, for instance. Yeah. I'm looking at, I'll probably do a bit of work on this on tomorrow and Sunday as well. Yeah. So they kind of blend in together. But I would say because the way I'm thinking about it is I have to get cracking on those Instagram lives if I want to achieve, what is it, however many it was in 3
48.
months. 48. Yeah. Therefore, I can't really wait until week. Oh, wait up. I'm thinking it's 3 months, isn't it? So there's 12 weeks.
Yes. Yeah.
I was thinking for 3, that week 3 was the final week for some reason. So I was like, how the heck am I going to do that in week 3 but also achieve my goal? Like I was ready to hang up there. No, I wasn't ready. Yeah, I reckon. Yeah, let's do that. Let's say week 3
to send them the 3 short questions.
Yeah, like if I get to it before that, awesome. And it just may mean that I'll have to try. I'll try and do a few more than say 4. I might try and do 1 a day once people locked in for the first week or 2 to try and get ahead.
And so you're doing 4 Instagram lives every week from week 4.
Yeah. So whatever that would mean, how many does that end up?
Well, if you up it to 5 or 6 a week, then you can end up hitting 48 still. Or if you do 4 a week for 9 weeks, you got 36.
Let's make it 36.
Okay, 36.
If we do more, we do more. If not, 36 is the goal though. That's the minimum.
So from week 4 to week 12, you're doing 4 Instagram lives every week. You're contacting 10 of those people about next week every week. So you're making that list of 20 names in week 1, but you're doing that every 2 weeks. You're doing that week 3, week 5, etc. And then you're contacting 10 of them. Is that different to sending them the 3 short questions, or are they the same thing?
I think that's the same. It'd all be in the same. Because it'd just be like a conversation,
So that's actually the same thing. And that starts in week 3.
Yeah.
And then that goes from week 3 every week, really. You're sending 10 people, or you're sending the questions through to a bunch of people every week. Yeah. Not all of them are going to say yes. So that's a weekly thing from week 3 to week 12. Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely. I think it's achievable.
And then the last thing we've got is going back up to, so in light of all of that you'll be doing, when will you be able to make the list of target hashtags and target authors, speakers, books, influencers for Instagram? Weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How far down do you reckon until you've got the bandwidth to do that?
Well, let's say week 4.
Okay, so you do that week 4.
Yeah. Like if I think these tasks, some tasks sound small when they're actually massive, but things like that, I think, that's the sort of thing that I find I just do a bit here and there, put that in my notes app on my phone, and then I've got that. But by week 4, sometime in week 4, by the end of week 4, that should be done. Those
and then
tasks.
From week 5, you comment on posts, or are you going to start that straight away?
I'd start that straight away, yeah.
So week 1 to 12, comment on 50 posts a day.
Yeah.
Or make 50 comments a day. And then the 4 snippets from each podcast on Instagram and YouTube, that's a thing you have to do every week?
Yeah. So I've worked out a way that because I have to export it into Premiere Pro or whatever, do a little bit of editing to do the intro and stuff. I found out a way that I can sort of cut it up there and then and export all that together. And at the moment,
so that's a weekly thing?
Yeah. Yeah, weekly.
And the 2 quotes, do you do that at the same time as well every week?
Yeah, because I do that at the same time that I create the YouTube thumbnail, thumbnail picture photo for it.
Yeah. So basically, are we able to put a file with this, Richo, for people to see?
Yeah, for sure.
The podcast. What I think would be good is to turn this into a bit of a weekly 12-week plan. I'll turn this into a bit of a 12-week plan for you so that you can put that up, and so people can see what the 12-week plan looks like and what the weekly plan looks like, because I think this is the bit that gets it's much easier when you can see it. And just to give you an example, the idea is that your 12-week plan will have 1,000 Instagram followers, find people in target audience and interact online, content strategy, 36 20-minute Instagram lives, create a list of people. So your 12-week plan will have the higher level goals and tactics. But then week 1, to give you an example, this is what your weekly plan will look like in week 1. Okay, week 1, create list of 12 podcast guests, contact 6 of them about interviewing them, and do 1 podcast this week. There's also create a list of people, at least 20 names of potential guests for Instagram lives.
Yep.
Pull 4 snippets from a podcast, pull 2 quotes from a podcast, and comment on 50 posts a day. So that sounds like a lot, but when you think of the scope of what we've been talking about, that's week 1. That's actually very achievable. And it gives you a list of, instead of having all this stuff swimming around your head, it gives you 9 things to look at through the whole week and go, you know what, if I can do those 50 comments now, today, I tick that off. Then the only other things I'm going to try to hit today is I'm going to work on the podcast. I'm going to pull the snippets and the quotes today from that. And then I'm also going to finish off that list of, wow, okay, I'm sort of halfway through my week.
Yeah,
so it gives you and the idea is in the book, The 12-Week Year, they say, the way to measure it, which I really love, is every week, at the end of the week, just look at what you've achieved. Have it somewhere where you can digitally or physically tick things off, because it's really great to have that, even if you're making a checklist in an Evernote or in notes, whatever. And at the end of the week, you want to see if you've done 85% is sort of the benchmark. If you're below 85%, it's worth, you probably would say that's unfortunate. We haven't had a great week. If you're below 50%, it's time to stop and actually go, have I been realistic with my plans? But if you're achieving, say you've got 10 things on there and you hit 9 of them, you can actually achieve 9 of them. That's actually a really great week. You just take that one thing you didn't do, you add it to the next week. Yeah. And the idea is that means that when you finish this week, the next week is already there, ready to go. You make it, and all you commit to is every 3 months actually sitting down and doing this process, not the whole thing, just the 12-week planning thing. And then you're able to get a fresh set of goals, and it gives you that real sense of urgency. You can probably already feel it. Before you knew you had lots of stuff you wanted to do, but now you've got the 1,000 Instagram followers hanging over your head where you're like, okay, well, I need to actually 12 weeks. That's not, that's soon. I need to actually get these Instagram live videos going. So it creates that accountability And that's where, once again, it's great to have a partner. If you're doing this with a friend, actually keep each other accountable, catch up regularly. If you've got a coach or a mentor, someone that can actually be reviewing this with you every 3 months, these things are always easier with someone. Yeah. And then the hard thing is just sticking to those weekly plans, just having them in front of you. And if you drop the ball, giving yourself a bit of grace and picking it up again. And then, and then basically see how you go by the end of 12 weeks. Maybe the first 2 times you do it, you only achieve 60% of what you sought out to achieve, but you realize where you were a bit unrealistic. You realize where you were going wrong with some of your habits. And in the third 12-week year, you actually get 80% done. That's where you start seeing some real traction, because you've sort of taken that really massive 10-year picture that you see, that's sort of a big vision, and you've just whittled it down to, what do I need to do tomorrow?
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. It's amazing. Like when we did start talking about that 12 weeks, so we started sort of putting names and labels and time frames. In my head, I was like, oh, damn, like there's a lot of work here. But then even as we started breaking it down into each week, like it's so good to kind of have that weekly plan. That's going to be so valuable, because at the moment I kind of sit down at my desk in the morning and I go, all right, what do I want to achieve today? Write down my list. But we all know it. You do something, but then you get halfway through it and you're like, oh crap, I really need to do this before I do that. And so that stalls. And before you know, I'm watching, I don't know, some car thing on YouTube because I'm stressed out that I haven't done anything, So if I can have something that I can tick through, and then if I don't get quite there, roll it over to the next week. And then, there's constantly reassessing. That's awesome. Thanks so much.
And the really helpful thing for people out there who are wanting to give this a go is that this isn't your whole week. This isn't all you do. These are just the first things you do. These are the main things you do. You've still got all the other things that come across your plate to do. Yeah. This isn't your complete to-do list. What this is, it's your weekly plan of what's most important. And it's you going, if I can do these things, then I know that I'm on track to be where I need to be. So if I'm going to choose between this and the other thing I think we do a lot, particularly people who are entrepreneurial, is you come up with a brand new idea. And it's so easy to go, you know what, man, I saw that tweet and that got so much reach. Maybe I should give Twitter a go. And you know what, it's always like there's a place for that. But at the same time, that's the sort of stuff where do that once you've finished your weekly plan, maybe, start messing around with Twitter. And then maybe you get to the end of your 12 weeks and you realize, actually, for me, I've realized in the past 12 weeks, I've given Instagram a red hot go. Now I actually realize it might be time to try Twitter because of this, and this. And then that makes it to your 12-week plan. So that's where that's the sort of the other side of the coin of this, is that until you articulate what's most important, you actually don't know what not to do as much as you need to find out what to do. You need to work out what not to do, because that's where we spend so much of our time, and you miss out on all the momentum you get when you actually just do what you need to do day after day, week after week, consistently, intentionally for a long period of time is very, very powerful.
I get so distracted by like creative stuff as well. So because like I'm studying graphic design, so like an example of it would be, I was looking at the YouTube thumbnails, like when you create a YouTube video, there's that sort of thing that's meant to grab your attention. I did a full redesign because I'm like, I'm not happy with how this looks. I really wanted to look a bit more professional. I did that. Literally like 2 hours later, I saw some other YouTube and the way that they'd done their thumbnails. And in my head, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to try and do that as well. But I had to consciously be like, no, that's going to take you a day and you're going to redo everything. Just leave it as it is. And but you have to be so careful, because you can just waste away a day of just back and forwards, not doing anything. And so, this is going to be awesome. But the crazy thing is now, if people are listening to this, fingers crossed, you're going to be holding me accountable as well. I expect some comments going, you haven't done what you talked about. So,
well, you know, I think it's Patrick Lencioni who talks about the power of public goals, and it's really powerful for organizations as well, because when you if you're a leader and you actually talk about your goals, not only is it like talk about vision or goals or how many people we want to see this happen for in their life, because this is what we do as an organization, or we want to hit this, you know, as a leadership team, we want to go in this direction. It's not only helpful for people to know where you're going as an organization, there's actually something that happens like what you've just described, where once it's out there, there's this weird sense of accountability. You know what it's like? It's like when you've got to rock up to a meeting and you've got to do stuff that you need to be doing anyway, but this meeting that you have to rock up to, in that meeting, you're accountable for whether you've done that report or done that task. Yeah. And it's so weird because nothing's changed. You're just rocking up to a meeting. You still needed to do it. Maybe there's no consequences for not doing it. It's just in the meeting you need to say whether you've done it. And yet I find whenever that's me in that situation, a day out, 2 days out from the meeting, I'm like, oh, that's right. I need to check if I've done that. Why? Because I have to say in that meeting whether I've done it. And I don't want to have to say that I didn't do it, even if there's no consequence. So there is something about publicly. So you've just taken that to another level by ultimate public accountability. I think it's a great thing though, because it's, yeah, I love that you've done this. I think people will appreciate the vulnerability. I hope there are people out there who are earlier, you know, they don't have a podcast yet. Their podcast idea is still just in their brain, and they're listening to this going, okay, you know what? It is realistic for me to get to where Richo is, where I've actually gone from an idea to actually doing it and actually putting in the hard work. And there'll be people out there who maybe have fully fledged businesses but want to pivot, or in that sort of group that you talked about, where they'll be listening and going, you know what, that Richo's inspired me by listening to him do that process to actually invest in the dream that I have, so I can pivot and actually go and do that. So,
well, that's it. Awesome, I literally had, after like the 5th episode, I had a couple of people, and they're like, I can't believe like that you've done that. Like I could never do that. Like how did you find the skills and the time and the money to do it? And I had to be like, dude, I have 0 skills. It cost me like...
I have none of the things you've mentioned.
Yeah, it cost me barely any money. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just having a crack, you know? Like,
oh, man, that's the same with me with clarity. 99% of the time having a crack, wondering, oh, I'll see how this goes. Do that 1,000,000 times and...
that's it.
You'll see what happens. You never know.
Exactly.
Still no guarantee.
But like, you know, there's that famous, is it Michael Jordan? I think it's Michael Jordan who's like, I can't remember it now. You miss
100% of the baskets you never throw. Something like that.
Yeah, shots you don't take.
Shots you don't take, that's right.
Yeah, which is true. Like, or I follow a bunch of people who you look at as being like supremely successful, who kind of just make all the right decisions, and they're like, every single day I fail. But, you know, success is just I can never say the word, culmination of tiny little wins over a period of time. Like every single thing is just little steps. Every single person everyone who's created a podcast, it's hard to say. Anybody who's created a podcast from scratch has had to go through these. There's some podcasters out there who kind of a network will come to them and say, you're famous, you're good at talking, come and sit in our studio. But anybody, it's just episode after episode after episode. You just got to keep doing it, you know? So
true. Yeah.
No, that's so good. Anything else we need to talk about, or is that essentially it? We've got our why, our purpose behind it, the sort of brand guarantee. So what people, every time they listen to an episode, what they're going to get out of the podcast. And then we've talked about some target audience, which I need to go into more detail with that too. But then also and now our goals. Yeah, that's so good. And then we've got a weekly plan. It's awesome.
Yeah, the feeling that people tend to have when they go through this process is you sort of think, when you talk about the process, we're going to talk about your reason you exist, the why. We're going to talk about your 10-year picture. You sort of expect to have this like, what? wow. But actually the feeling when you go through this in your shoes, I hear from people tends to be more like, oh, yeah. Why couldn't I say it like that before?
100%.
Like, yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, that's not rocket science. I knew that. I just couldn't, maybe I couldn't articulate that. I knew those were my brand promises. Like if you gave me 5 hours to explain that to you hanging out over dinner one night, I probably could have gotten the message across. But yeah, now I can nail that in 3 words. So it's actually, it's like taking, you know, all these beautiful ingredients that are out there and distilling them into some like super condensed broth that, you know, that you then have, and you're like, you know what's in this? All this stuff that was around there is in this, but now it looks really tiny and small and kind of brown. But it's like, you don't know the power of what's in this, because I've taken all this stuff and spent all this time to condense it so I can take a bit of this and put it into, you know, my stir fry and make something delicious. I don't know if you put broth stir fries. Roll with it. I am a chef.
Great. I'm sure it's
brought to you by MasterChef 2020. But that's the process. So I think, I think normally you end up feeling a bit like, oh, that's so simple. But there is that real lightness of clarity around, which is why I love that word, which is just, I'm so clear on why I'm doing what I'm doing, where I'm going long term. But also I think you need that last part. It's not good enough to go 10-year picture, blah, blah, blah. You actually need to go, okay, and if that's where I'm sensing, you know, the call on my life is to move in that direction, what do I do tomorrow? Because you've got to wake up, get out of bed and do something tomorrow to actually achieve it. And that's where I love bringing it all the way back down. So yeah,
for sure.
It's good, man. I've really enjoyed the process. It's been fun to do this together.
Yeah. I think as well, just to add something there, like I think this process has been so good it's definitely for me what you just said, like there's not this big aha moment. It's kind of like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I've been wanting to do. But I think the real power for me is that it kind of gives me things that I to say no to, where I'm like, no, that's not the direction I want to take. I don't want that I don't want that style of guest or thing on there's no point even thinking about that for now. This is what I want to do. And so you can kind of laser in. And that's been, I was reflecting on that this morning going, okay, this makes, even as I was starting to think around potential future guests, I'm like, oh, this is slightly easier now because there's like 90% of the people that I like. I'm like, that's awesome. I'd listen to that on another podcast, but it's not what I want to do for this one, you know?
Yeah.
Which I think, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's like a rudder. It's like a rudder of a ship. If you like saw a massive ship and it changed a rudder like that, you'd be like, what am I looking at? This tiny, tiny little rudder. But you watch that ship in the next, 5 hours moving at some rate of knots, and it's going to end up in, over a few weeks, it's going to end up at a different continent. That's the stuff that we've been working on, is like that rudder. And it's a little thing. It can seem like a little thing, but you get down the track 12 weeks, 12 months, 12 years, and it can be a difference of continents as to where you've ended up. It's, I love that about it. It's really hard to articulate why it's so important, but it is. And it's really, it's fun to do this sort of process with people. And
we used to go sailing really a lot as a family. And a few times we went on some like long distance sails, like, from here to Fraser Island, which took a couple of days because our boat was pretty slow at sailing. But I remember we had like a GPS, which was like an electronic map, and you could see like a long track, and you could see there's a track where you should be going, and then would have an arrow for the boat. And the boat was kind of like over here. And I remember I was pretty young, but I said to Dad, I'm like, why the heck? We're meant to be going that way. And he's like, no, there's a current. So it's going to slowly take us that way. And then we would do all this adjusting. He's like, but if we just ended up headed there, we'd be in like flipping Fiji somewhere. But, but because you got to allow for those currents. And that was like an interesting lesson now that I reflect on it, of like, it's not just go there. There's always little adjustments that you need to make. And
true.
Interesting. Anyway, this has been so good. I really appreciate it. And we'll definitely put that, once you get time to go through and put that document together, that would be amazing.
Yeah,
and I'll put all those books in the description because I'm going to go and buy some of those, I reckon.
Yeah, they're gold. They're really good. I'll send you the link for that blog to put in there as well that we talked about in part 1, which is a really good blog to check out. I can't remember what about, but it was really good.
I think I wrote a note. It's in my other notebook.
Oh, that's right. It was about profit per X, the economic engine of an organization, which I've just realized today for clarity, I think is about profit per employee.
Okay.
Because I've realized that's something I'm really passionate about because I want to have lots of margin, lots of profit for each person that I bring on so that I can really invest in people, pay them really well. And it just gives me lots of flexibility to really be very generous and very intentional around when you have a high profit per employee, it means compared to say profit per if I was doing high turnover with low margin, it can put a bit more pressure on what salary you can afford because your margin's only small. But having a bit of a wider margin is something that I've realized now. Oh yeah, I want to do that. Why? Because profit per employee is probably the way I want to go. I would like to have 100 just excellent people working for me, earning $100 million with $1 million profit per employee. That to me is awesome. Rather than 100 people working for $5 million, where it's really tight and it's for me.
Yeah, you have less flexibility, less buffer. You can take less risks. So yeah, that's really cool.
So yeah, listen to part 1 if you didn't hear us talk about that. But that's a little that's something I've only just realized since we chatted about that as I've been thinking about it going, what is my economic engine? Because I hadn't ever really been able to articulate that, but I think profit per employee fits really well for me because for a number of reasons. So yeah, that's a really, really powerful part of the hedgehog concept that we talked about in part 1.
Yeah. So for clarity again, people can find you at clarity.org. I believe.
Consultclarity.org.
Consultclarity.org.
Yeah, so go to consultclarity.org. Sorry, what were you saying?
And where else? I'm sure there's some social media stuff you've got.
Yeah, so I have on Facebook, you can connect with me, Jonno White. There's also Clarity for Christian Schools and Clarity for Churches, which are the two main ones I'm focusing on. I also have Clarity for Christian Charities, which is a focus on Christian nonprofits, but that's sort of still getting off the ground. So yeah, look up Clarity for Churches, Clarity for Christian Schools on LinkedIn, Clarity for Christian Schools and Clarity for Churches. I think I have Clarity for Christian Schools and Clarity for Churches on all platforms, like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook and LinkedIn. And I'm most frequent on Facebook and LinkedIn. And also, but yeah, check out the website. There's lots of info on there and my blog's on there. And
awesome.
Yeah, enjoy.
Go and check it out, everybody. And thank you again, man. It's been awesome. And everybody put this stuff into practice. I reckon it's going to change our lives, not just your life, because I'm doing it as well. And keep me accountable if you see me slacking off. So... And on that.
Yeah, if you see Richo and you've listened to this podcast, just send him a little message that you're holding him accountable by just winking one eye, holding that eye closed, and just shaking your head at him for about 3 or 4 seconds. He'll know what you mean.
Aggressively.
Yeah, just passive aggressively, just to say, I'm watching you, Richo. In 12 weeks, I want to see those 1,000 Instagram followers, buddy.
Yeah,
he'll appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. Oh, it's beautiful. Maybe you'll need to do that over Zoom because of current lockdowns, but don't be afraid.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Jonno, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. See ya.
See ya.
Thanks, man.